like you keep saying the same thing since I saw you first time. Just more like they've learned so much. And since day one, I remember a few months into this, 3, 4 months into this, I realized I knew nothing. But I laughed about it. I couldn't stop laughing. It was such a relief to me that I knew nothing. And I would occasionally even say that I was stupid and laugh. And people would just go, "Oh, you're not stupid," trying to be supportive, and I'd laugh even more. I'm just nothing, even at work at times, because I knew they didn't know what I was talking about. As a joke, I would say like I was nothing. And I would just go, "Oh, no, you're not nothing. You're so good." And I laugh even more. I find it really cute because you have to laugh with ordinary people about it, but you can't really talk about it, as you know. And with non-dual people who are really into these dogma things, and I don't know who they're trying to fool. Like, why they're trying to prove to me they're enlightened. They got no clue what they're talking about to today's date. And I'm hoping, like, I don't judge. I don't look at it from judgment. I know it's not their doing. But it just said how the nature plays with us, with our minds, and we can't do anything. You just go, see, these people can't do anything. I could have been one of those, And and people believe in lineages also, like I'm a part of lineage. And it's good for my spiritual CV, for my non-dual CV. I'll put in my resume that I'm part of lineage, I'll get more followers. And I'm so, one day you might become like me, and this is what you're hearing, and you go, what can you do? And these people teach, they said, and they tend to teach these narcissistic people why I brought up this subject, because I find that narcissistic people, spiritual narcissistic people, actually love teaching, love preaching. People who are genuine, they don't teach. Like, you don't teach anyone anything, You just genuinely shared how you saw all of this yourself. And for me, that honesty resonated, because I can't find much honesty in this spiritual industry, to be honest. So, yeah.
Well, I don't think there is a lot of honesty in it, and that's why it can't be found. There is some. I won't write off the entire thing. I'm not a U.G. Krishnamurti, although I'm close to it, though. But I mean, he wrote off the whole thing, just said it was all nonsense. I don't quite go there, but for the most part, it's what you said. It's an industry, and there's money to be made. And when you have a product, you want that brand to have a good reputation. And so you won't say things that are hard to accept, because if you do, you may lose followers. And if you lose followers, your income goes down, and that's not successful. That's not a good business, to be losing customers. So the customer's always right. And that's an industry. When you have someone like a John Troy you've mentioned, that person is not trying to gain favor with you. He has no interest in doing that. He doesn't need to do it. His income doesn't depend on it. And he's not narcissistic, so he doesn't need to be popular. He'll just say it as it is. Say it like it is. I think I'm someone like that. I had this awakening experience long ago, back in the 80s. And when it first occurred, I kept questioning myself. It took like 6 or 7 years of thinking about it, reading about it, because I had not been a big reader of spiritual books. I'd read some, but I was more interested in other things. I had a photography career at the time, and I was really deeply involved in that. Eventually, I came to accept that, yes, I'm really awake in this world. It does happen. It's not that common, but people do actually awaken in a deep sense. But I didn't speak about it for 20 years or more, no more, maybe 25 years. Then I slowly began to introduce that theme into some, well, I should go back. I had a website that wasn't about spirituality. It was basically an online brochure for my therapy practice. But people began sending me questions, and I replied to them on the web page. And that web page became really popular. It's had, I think, 5 million views, and it's been read all over the world. I don't keep it up anymore, so it's probably not as popular as it once was. But my answers to questions were about sexuality and narcissism and all the rest of this. But now and then I would get a question that I could answer from a more kind of awakened point of view, and I did that. And so that basically oozed out into the world. And finally, a couple of people I trusted, John Troy was one of them, and the other was Dr. Robert K. Hall, the late Buddhist teacher, kind of urged me to go public with this. And so I have, but not because I think I know anything, but because they said that my point of view was useful and that it ought to be heard. And I think that's where I am with it now. I've gotten a bit lost here. You'd said something, I thought I was replying to it, but I got lost in my personal history, which probably is just a swamp at this point.
No, this is great actually, because I was going to ask you about your photography. I wanted to mention that as well. I've forgotten. Basically, it's. I find it's really big thing because you were very kind of popular in New York. I even know people from here who followed you, right? Your photography, and it's really something I haven't seen before. Like I really get stunned by your, you know, like your work. But you said there was so much pressure in that. From my perspective, like I would imagine to do something you really love doing, so creative, but then you still get sucked in, in that competition or whatever it is at the time. If you did it now, like if you went back to New York and had like and started all over again, could you probably see from this different perspective, just from the enjoyment of having your pictures on this display and stuff, like having people coming in, having a look at your pictures. I presume you would see it from different perspective today. And would it be the same for you? Like, could you see yourself doing it again or no?
Oh, what a question. What happened is after the awakening, I tried to continue with my career. It was a pretty hot art career. I had a lot of New York exhibitions. I had an agent. I had works in a lot of important publications and museums. And I found that it was becoming increasingly hard to be around all those people. I was having to drink too much to attend the openings of my exhibitions. I didn't like the people I was meeting. Um, and what happened is, just on the eve of an important exhibition, I became ill. I became too ill, and the whole thing had to be called off. And during that illness, which was really, I was really terribly ill. I was delirious a lot and night sweats and all this. Well, I consulted a naturopath, a guy about 10 years younger than me, a young guy. I was young at the time, in my 40s. Um, he was taking my history and looking into my eyes. And what I saw coming out of his eyes was this profound compassion. And Sabine, it was like a voice in my head. It wasn't a real voice, but it was as if I heard these words. Words were, "This is what you should be doing, Robert." And I knew right then it didn't mean that I should be doing naturopathy. It meant that I should be doing compassion, not being this famous photographer who was involved in all these kind of scams in the art world. Um, the photography was great, producing the work was great, but selling it is not great. It wasn't great for me. So at that point, I pretty much dropped out of photography. I went back to school, got a PhD in psychology, which was easy for me because I had always had an interest in psychology anyway, and had done a lot of the necessary reading anyway. So I got the PhD in a couple of years, and I opened my practice, and I've never regretted that. Never regretted that. And about 10 years ago, I went back to photographing again, and I've produced a lot of work since then, and I really love it. I, I posted on my Facebook page, and that seems good enough. David Zuckerman, who died of AIDS, wanted to arrange an exhibition for me in LA, and I turned him down. So I don't think I would go back to that again. I just don't want to be in that world. At this point in my life, I would just like to do the photographic work without hustling it at all. And when people give you exhibitions, well, they have to make a living doing it. So you have to collude in that. And really, I'd rather not. So that's a long answer, I guess, to your question, Sabine.